So I would now like to invite Mark Lam to our virtual stage. Mark is a partner and head of monitoring and remediation at BDO Canada, with over 20 years of experience in various assurance and accounting issues impacting both public and private enterprises. Mark is passionate about learning and development and has taken on various teaching positions at the University of Toronto and York University at both undergraduate and graduate levels. In the past, he has been a marker at the School of Accountancy, a provincial reviewer, probably professional as well, of the Uniformed Final Evaluation, and an author of CPA exams. So, thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thank you, Maggie. It's my pleasure.
Fantastic. So we're going to get started here. We don't have a ton of questions, but we have some really good questions for you, and so I hope you'll feel free to treat us as if we're your friends, your confidants, and tell us your honest thoughts in answer to these 4 questions. So let me begin. Why don't we start by having you briefly tell us about your career path after you graduated from York and how you ended up where you are today?
Sure. So I'm Mark Lam. By trade, I'm an accountant. So I currently work at BDO Canada, which is an accounting firm, and I am part of the National Risk Management Group. So at the national office, we service all our 100 offices, and it's the 100 offices that do client work. Whereas I'm at the national office at the Risk Management Group, and as you mentioned, I'm the head of quality monitoring. So what that means is I oversee our internal monitoring program that we have at this accounting firm. I guess I can begin by saying, quality is top of mind in our profession, especially, Maggie, in today's climate. It's a huge focus, and mainly because accountants sell trust. Accountants sell trust to data. That's essentially what we do. So in university, and actually I should correct you, I attended another university, but in the university, I majored in economics and finance. It wasn't until the 3rd year in my university career, so probably very similar to a lot of our people on this call. It's in 3rd year that I decided that I wanted to pursue accountancy. I can tell you it's definitely opened up a lot of doors. In fact, when I was in university, I contemplated after getting my degree in Canada that maybe I'll go back to Asia. And that's precisely why I obtained the Canadian CA at that time, chartered accountant, and my US CPA at that, right when I started working, because I thought anything that I attached to my name that is a Canadian designation or North American designation, both would help me in any part of the world. So when I began my working career, Maggie, I started working at PwC. So obviously it's one of the big 4 firms. I did client work there. Later on, I did some self-reflection, and I decided that, maybe my calling is in academia or anything to do with education, because I truly have a passion in that. And it was after my doing client work, articling at PwC, that I decided that, maybe I should do a few other things. And that's when I joined BDO. When I joined BDO, it was also at their national group, and I focused on assurance and accounting training. So as opposed to doing client work, I pivoted to training our auditors in-house. Mm-hmm. And that's actually when I got connected to York, and I also started teaching at York. And I used to teach management information systems, but that was almost 20 years ago. And I can tell you, I need to humble myself a little bit. Management information systems 20 years ago versus now, oh my goodness, right?
Pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, totally. I can even joke about this. I bet at that time, there's probably a paragraph on AI, right? Actually, you don't want maybe backtrack. When I was in university, there was a paragraph on AI. When I taught at York, there was probably a chapter. And now we can write a whole book on AI, right? Yeah. And maybe even make that a course.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I joined BDO, focused on training. Then later on in my career, I focused on assurance standards. So training was very interesting. But then when I was in that role, I realized that, maybe I need to branch off a little bit. And actually, my curiosity got me going. I thought, how are accounting and assurance standards actually set? And when it's said, and when it's rolled out, like, how do firms actually adopt these things? How do companies actually pivot and try to change their approach to adopting GAAP, right? So anyway, so standards, got really into it. Then now in my career, I'm part of the risk management group. When they pitched this role to me, it was almost like, hey, Mark, you were always interested in training. So what's the point of training anyway? Well, and what's the point of monitoring? The whole point of monitoring for quality is to see where we can improve, right, as a firm. So there's definitely a training connection there. And yeah, that's how I got to where I am today. And I can tell you one thing though, I didn't really change jobs in the last 18 years, as in change companies, but I can tell you the world kept changing.
Yeah, for
Even when I
sure.
started at the same pace, yeah, fast pace, right? I kept growing, and I think that's what's most important. And I
Okay.
think one day I may come back to York.
Okay. Okay. So thanks for that. And just want to appreciate thanks for sharing that, third year is when different thoughts came to you. I think it's good to know that we're all a work in progress. I'm going to move kind of quickly through the remaining three questions because we're keeping an eye on time. But you've said a little bit about this already, but maybe in one or two sentences, can you tell us just a little bit about how mentorship and advice from others, how those have played a role in your journey? Anything memorable or?
Yeah, so true. Anytime I'm asked to do a mentoring event, a networking event, I say yes. I can tell you the day-to-day work is important, and day-to-day work of a student is a study. Day-to-day work for you and myself, we have an employer. Now, but it's all the things on the side that kind of kept me going. I can tell you when I was working in an accounting firm in the beginning, I did recruiting events because that kept me going.
Right.
Then later on, I mentored CPA students, and then I did everything you mentioned about marketing and things like that. So I think keeping in touch is very important, and
Okay.
that's how you get in touch with people.
Okay. Here's a good one. I love this one. And we might end with this one. If you could go back in time, Mark,
Yes.
What career advice would you give to the earlier university student version of yourself? So you can go back in time,
Sure.
career
Yeah,
advice you'd give
no
to
problem
the
at all.
earlier version of you.
I can tell you that meeting people is very exciting. Doing internships and whenever there's co-op opportunities or summer job opportunities, you know what? Try to take that seriously and try to give yourself the chance to experience things that you think maybe you have a passion in for the rest of your life. So I think getting exposure. Maybe I'll just cap it at that. I think some people think, oh, you're going to business, a desk job, 9 to 5. How boring could that be? I can tell you, not true at all. Because when you sit at a desk, yeah, you're at a desk, but you're thinking about strategy. You're thinking about decision making. You're thinking about professional judgment. These are all things that a business degree gets you. And I think when you're actually working, yeah, there are parts of the job that's routine, but there's so many other parts of the job if you're willing to seek for it on strategy, decision making, judgment, which truly should spark the fire in your heart.
So I love that answer. And I'm thinking maybe that can sort of serve to answer what the last question was I was going to ask you, which was just sort of, for this evening, like what would you tell students about how they can make the most of this evening's event? And I'm sort of hearing that, put yourself out there, connect, have a conversation, introduce yourself, make a connection sounds like what you're advocating for.
Oh, also true. Take time to invest in yourself. That's what it is, eh? Now the opportunities are all yours. You haven't made up your mind yet, and you have a whole education career as well as a working career ahead of you. So yeah, invest in yourself.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for sharing those great insights. I'm sure everybody, not just the students, can benefit from what you've sort of shared here this evening.